Tonight, live from the Republican National Convention, after 72 hours that changed the race for the White House, is Donald Trump now unbeatable? Overnight, he arrived here with a bandaged ear, a raised fist and his hallmark defiance, and was received with rapturous applause. As was the man who will campaign alongside him, 39-year-old J.D. Vance will chart the evolution of the man who could soon be vice president. Away from Milwaukee, Joe Biden scrambles to refocus his campaign and apologizes for saying it's time to put Trump in a bullseye.
It was a mistake to use the word. I didn't say crosshairs. I meant bullseye. I meant focus on him. Focus on what he's doing.
We'll bring you the president's speech live from Las Vegas and hear hopes for the future of the Republican Party and the country here in Milwaukee. That's all coming up on The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Good evening. I'm Yalda Hakim with this special edition of The World, live from the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. In a few hours' time, senior figures from the party will take to the stage and address a packed hall. Already, the mood here is jubilant, with rehearsing getting underway just behind me. Last night, supporters stood to welcome the two men many here feel are well on their way to the White House. Donald Trump, his ears still bandaged, looked visibly emotional as he thanked the crowd, just days after surviving an assassination attempt at a campaign rally. He slapped the shoulder of J.D. Vance, previously a Trump critic, now a disciple and his new running mate. So are these two now unstoppable? Well, Joe Biden and his team hope not. But they're running out of options. Mr. Biden wants to stay in the race, but he can no longer cast his opponent as a dangerous threat to democracy. Not after those bullets were fired in Butler, Pennsylvania on Saturday. He's back on the campaign trail in the battleground state of Nevada and is due to address a major gathering of black voters. We'll bring you his comments as they come in live. But here we'll be hearing the voices that matter in Milwaukee too, from voters to senior politicians. The governor of Alaska will be with me here in the next few minutes. Lots to talk about tonight, and you're looking at images of Las Vegas, where we're expecting President Biden to address some of the issues that have come up in the last few weeks and, of course, over the weekend as well. But rehearsals are getting underway, and I want to show you what's happening here behind me. There have been rehearsals all afternoon. Nikki Haley took to the stage. We also saw J.D. Vance, of course. Everyone is talking about J.D. Vance, President Trump's running mate ahead of the November election. And of course, we saw Donald Trump's two sons on the stage as well. We're not sure if President Trump will be back here this evening. He was here yesterday, a big day here for the convention. Of course, it was the first time we saw Donald Trump with that bandaged ear, and the first time we heard about the nomination of J.D. Vance. There was a real mood of jubilance here, and we are expecting, as we said, the same. We'll be bringing you lots of interviews, lots of analysis, and all of our correspondents who have spoken to so many people here across the United States and in Milwaukee. But first, let's begin tonight's coverage with our correspondent, Martha Kellner.
Like a boxer to the ring, bloodied, bandaged, but buoyant in the polls. This is the Donald Trump Resilience Tour, his first appearance since an attempted assassination. Has a brush with death made him more popular than ever? His future daughter-in-law thinks so. How has this shooting changed Donald, do you think?
He's very resilient, and we're just so proud of him and so grateful, and we're blessed that he is okay.
Do you think his popularity has increased even more with voters?
I think it's where it should be, because he's incredible. He's doing an amazing job, and the American people love him.
How is he physically?
Doing very well, thanks be to God.
Trump picked 39-year-old Senator J.D. Vance as his running mate. Last week, Vance called Britain an Islamist country with nuclear weapons. He was also once one of Trump's fiercest critics, comparing him to Hitler and calling him cultural heroin. Not a problem, say Trump's campaign.
There's a lot of things going on in the media and the Democrat Party saying that, J.D. Vance is a former critic of President Trump. I wouldn't say he's a critic, I would say he's a convert. And I would say he's not the only one who is now a convert.
That certainly chimes with the mood at the Republican National Convention. Optimistic after polls showed Trump now leading Biden in all 7 swing states.
Fight, fight, fight. That's what he said, right? I mean, he gets up like that. The first thing he thinks about is us, the people.
An assassination attempt like that, I mean, my sense is it's having him reflect on what's really important, and he's got to get this done.
When he makes his speech inside here on Thursday, it's likely Donald Trump will strike a more conciliatory tone. And the bandage on his ear will be a reminder of his own mortality, perhaps now his most potent political prop. With calls to cool down the rhetoric from both sides, President Biden was forced to defend a comment he made pre-shooting about putting Trump in the bullseye.
It was a mistake to use the word. I didn't say crosshairs. I meant bullseye. I meant focus on him. Focus on what he's doing. Focus on his policies.
The Republican ticket is now confirmed, and it certainly feels like the political winds are with them. But it is still 4 months out from an election, and this week has been a reminder that anything can happen. Martha Kellner, Sky News, Milwaukee.
Well, joining me now is the Governor of Alaska, Mike Dunleavy. Thank you so much, Governor, for joining us here on the program. You have been speaking to the President. You were with him yesterday. How is he doing after the incident of the weekend?
Well, and I really was speaking to his staff, to be honest with you, because I want to give the President a break from what occurred on Saturday. But he's doing well. Obviously, he's very grateful that this assassination attempt failed. He is very concerned about the individuals that were also injured and killed. And I think all of us thought this was a huge tragedy. This is not something that America looks forward to at all. And I do believe people are sincere on both sides of the aisle, that we need to move forward and be focused on policies and not harming each other.
There are reports that we're hearing that there is some intelligence, and there have been some reports around this, that there was potentially some kind of Iranian plot to assassinate the president. Have you heard anything around this?
I haven't, and you're going to hear a lot of things, but it's going to take some time, I think, to really plow through this and find out what the real motives were, what were the logistics, and was there any assistance for this individual to do what he did. But I don't have an answer to that right now.
Do you think there is a sense of unity here at the Republican National Convention?
I do. And I was on the floor yesterday talking with people here this morning, this afternoon. I do. I think there is unity. The people here, and it's represented by President Trump, just want to do everything we can to give the average American an opportunity to succeed in this country, the opportunity to be who they want, to be as free as they want, and to have economic opportunity. I mean, that was the whole premise of America to begin with back in 1776. And so what I'm hearing, I'm not hearing anybody calling for vengeance or hurting people. People are excited.
But this is a divided nation, isn't it? I mean, the events of the weekend just showed that it now had come to some kind of dangerous moment. Yeah,
yes, it is. But it's in some ways it's always been, even from our beginnings. And this is not the first assassination attempt. There's been several, unfortunately, in our history. But I think social media, I think some aspects of the media, just being honest, can kind of gin this up in light speed. But what I heard today, I'm very positive. I didn't know what to expect, but everyone I'm talking to on the floor, average person from Iowa or Alaska or Florida, they're excited about the potential of another Trump administration.
Tell me your thoughts around J.D. Vance being named as President Trump's running mate.
Yeah, and I don't know J.D., but I would assume that the president did this and named J.D. because he wants a younger person. He wants a younger person to represent the future of the country. A lot of us are getting up in age, and having somebody of J.D.'s age, his background, I think is a signal to America that Trump is looking beyond his 4 years and wants to make sure that there's somebody that has a chance of being in place that's going to carry on some of the aspects of his administration that I think we all support, and then build an America for future generations.
He's been quite critical of Donald Trump in the past, though, hasn't he? I mean, describing him as America's Hitler, for example, describing him as an idiot as well.
I would say that there are some folks that have criticized the president. That's true. But I think they've had plenty of dialogue over the past year and a half. And whatever criticisms there were, I think it's been allayed and that's been put behind him because obviously he's now the vice presidential nominee.
You've said that people feel a sense of unity. One of the tweets straight after this assassination attempt that J.D. Vance put out was he pointed the finger of blame at the Democratic Party. Do you think that was the right thing to do?
I think a lot of people were upset initially, but I think most of us are trying to understand what happened. If they understand the history of political politics in America, and as I mentioned, unfortunately, some assassinations and attempts, they soon realize that a lot of these actions are done by people that are either mentally unstable. In the case of Lincoln, it was a disgruntled Southern sympathizer and John Wilkes Booth. But I think people are beyond that now, and I think people are looking at the future and just grateful that the president is alive, not seriously hurt, and sad for the people that were killed in this event.
Let's talk about your position and your state and the president's position on certain things. You have stood by the president for many, many years. Yeah. But there are certain issues that you differ in terms of the environment, for example.
Explain that to me.
I mean, the president says he's big on oil and not on renewables. He says he hates wind. That's not necessarily what you say.
Right, but I think, and I haven't talked to the president in detail on this, but I think what the president's issue is minimizing fossil fuels, eliminating fossil fuels at any cost. There's technology there, for example, for carbon storage, et cetera. But I don't, I think what you're going to find is that we need more energy of all kinds, especially with supercomputing, artificial intelligence. You're just going to need more energy. And I think what the president wants is to unleash opportunity, not socially engineer, which is really happening now. Right now, you have a social engineering policy trying to be implemented across America where cheap energy, whether it's fossil fuels, whether it's oil, gas, coal, you name it, is being eliminated at the expense of having more energy. And so I think what you're going to see is, I think you're going to see an administration that wants as much energy as possible, and they will certainly not de-emphasize fossil fuels. But I don't know how many people in this administration are really going to go after renewables because the technology is there and it makes sense in many cases.
So do you think that you'll have the president's support, or do you think that when it comes to these issues, you may go head-to-head with him on some of these things?
I don't think we're going to go head-to-head because I think, again, knowing the president, we agree that we need more opportunity, more energy opportunity, more economic opportunity, more educational opportunity, more opportunities, and more freedom. I'm looking forward to a smaller government. I'm looking forward to deregulation. I'm looking forward to the states doing more than what the federal government is doing now. So, I mean, that's the America I think that most people want. We'll know on November 5th, but I'm pretty confident that we're looking at a President Trump's second term.
And Governor, how do you think the next few months will evolve, given what's happened at the weekend and given the nature of things at the moment? I mean, I'm seeing banners here talking about Make America Safe Again.
Yeah, well, yes, because a lot of our cities have been burning. There's upheaval, defund the police. Our homeless situation has spiraled out of control. So I think you're going to see more of a focus on policy, more discussion on policy, what people are going to do, what are their ideas to fix some of the things here in America. But you know, a lot of people have counted America out for 248 years. We're still here. We're still strong. We're still going to do well. And this is one of the reasons why I support President Trump, because I agree with his policies.
Governor, thank you so much for your time.
Good seeing you.
Thank you. Cheers. Well, I just spoke to the governor there about President Trump's nominee, J.D. Vance. As I said, Trump's running mate came as a surprise to some, not least because he was once such a fierce critic of the former president, famously likening him to Adolf Hitler. But last night, Mr. Vance was formally sworn in as his VP pick.
I am proud to announce that Senator J.D. Vance has the overwhelming support of this convention to be the next Vice President of the United States.
Well, the announcement was met with huge cheers from the Republican crowd. Mr. Vance, a once bitter critic of Donald Trump during the 2016 campaign, publicly calling him an idiot and saying he was reprehensible, to now running mates. Have a listen. Well, in recent years, Mr. Vance's views on Donald Trump have completely turned to support the former president. He's downplayed the January 6th attack on the US Capitol and backed him against his recent criminal trial in New York. So it's clear J.D. Vance, like Donald Trump, takes an America-first approach to foreign policy. Today, the new Labour government launched a root and branch review of the UK's defence capabilities. It will be led by the former NATO chief, Lord Robertson, who's highlighted the growing threat from a deadly quartet of nations, Russia, China, Iran and North Korea. So how could a Trump White House affect the UK's plans to protect itself? Our security and defence editor, Deborah Haynes, has been finding out.
A new kind of alliance as China and Russia strengthen ties in a shared challenge for the West. But it could also become a point of friction, even fracture between allies if Donald Trump returns to power. His new running mate sees Beijing as the biggest threat, not Russia and its war in Ukraine, even though support to Kyiv is a top priority for the UK. This is what J.D. Vance said before Moscow's full-scale invasion.
I think it's ridiculous that we're focused on this border in Ukraine. I got to be honest with you, I don't really care what happens to Ukraine one way or another.
And here's the potential future vice president this week.
I think what President Trump has promised to do is go in there, negotiate with the Russians and Ukrainians, bring this thing to a rapid close so that America can focus on the real issue, which is China. That's the biggest threat for our country, and we're completely distracted from it.
Speaking to Sky News, Britain's Defence Secretary tried to maintain a united front when asked about J.D. Vance's views.
Is that a position that you agree with?
My point to you is this. A NATO summit last week in Washington, for the first time, 32 nations together, bigger, stronger, more unified, with Ukraine involved, all standing together and stepping up support for Ukraine.
For Ukraine, there's alarm, but not despair.
I wouldn't say that there is such an atmosphere, in Ukraine that we believe that Trump, as the president of the US, will stop, supplies of the aid to Ukraine.
You don't believe that?
No, I wouldn't say so.
As well as Ukraine, there's concern about what a new Trump presidency would mean for the UK and other NATO allies if, as feared, there's a pivot by the US away from defending Europe to focus more on China, leaving the rest of the alliance to fend for themselves. The threat from friends as well as foes will surely frame a major review of defence launched by the government. John Healey is pledging a new era for defence. The big question is whether he can deliver. Deborah Haynes, Sky News.
Well, let's bring in Alina Haber, who is a senior advisor to the president's campaign. Thank you very much, Alina, for joining us here on the program. There is a lot of jubilation here. Do you think that the mood, the energy, given what happened at the weekend, has changed how this RNC is being viewed?
I mean, I hope so. I hope if you have a pulse and you believe in God, how can this not change it, right? I think his policies have always been amazing. I think America First is always a great platform to stand on. But after what happened on Saturday, I don't know how anybody could have a new restoration and belief in life in America, and also in how important this election is. Violence has no place here. What we saw was the demise of our country and the rhetoric from radical left bringing this into our country and allowing something like this to happen. It should never happen. It shouldn't have happened historically. I can't believe that I've seen it in my lifetime.
There are extremists on both sides using language that is extreme, isn't it? Isn't there? I mean, on both sides, we're hearing this kind of violent rhetoric.
I disagree with that. I don't know who you're speaking of, but in terms of the campaign, you have to remember what we've been put through for the past 3 years with President Trump since he left, frankly, since 2015 when he walked down the golden escalator. The desperation coming from people who have somebody who is clearly does not have his faculties in place running the country. The desperation for them to use lawfare, to use some of the things that I've seen, and the desperation now of an individual from Pennsylvania who would ever choose to try and assassinate a president is despicable, frankly, to me. So no, I think that you have to remember that we are responding to being under siege effectively for the last, frankly, for him since 2015. For me personally, I've been with him, post-presidency for the majority of the time and dealing with the legal lawfare and warfare that they've put on him. It's persecution, frankly.
We have spoken about the weekend, but we also understand that U.S. intelligence received intelligence in recent weeks about an Iranian plot to assassinate Donald Trump. And that was also one of the reasons why the Secret Service wanted to up his protection. Are you guys hearing anything about this?
I would never speak to any of that. I don't put my President Trump at risk and would never. That's between him and Secret Service.
Has it changed him, what happened at the weekend?
How can it not? Has it changed him? No. I don't think it's changed him. I think anybody who is almost assassinated has a new appreciation for every day. Although he's frankly always lived his life appreciating every day and making the most of it. The man fights hard every single day. So I can tell you the first time I saw him post-assassination, he was at business as usual, working, speaking to reporters, doing his job, trying to get America back to where it needs to be. But yeah, I'm not sure it changed him. I think that
is he feeling
it's traumatic.
Vulnerable? I mean,
I think you would have to ask him that question. If all I can tell you is from somebody who's seen him, who's spoken to him, vulnerability is not the first thing that I would ever say or see from Donald Trump. He is so strong, so resilient. He brings a strength that, frankly, when anybody is feeling exhausted, we look at him and you get reminded if this person can go through all of this and continue business as usual. We did not change the moment the flight left for the RNC. Not one thing, not one beat was missed by him. And that's who Donald Trump is and President Trump is, and we love it. It's great.
There's a lot of momentum now, obviously, after J.D. Vance was also announced as his running mate. He has been very critical of Donald Trump in the past. He's described him as America's Hitler. He's described him as an idiot. How is that being received, do you think?
I know J.D. Vance. I don't really care how people receive things. If you look at what people say about me, I think we have to remember something. Life is long. People evolve. People grow. J.D. Vance is America first. He stands on the same values that we do, that President Trump does. And I think he's going to be great for the Trump ticket. I think we're going to take it all the way home. I mean, I didn't really, frankly, have any question in my mind. But with Vance on the ticket, I think we're stronger than ever. We're going to be just fine.
What do you think Vance taps into?
Number one, I love his youth. I'll be honest with you. I love that he's my generation. I love that he has matches President Trump's energy, which is hard to do even at 40, because he can exhaust me. President Trump has more energy than I do. But he loves America, and he's all about that, and that's number one. He puts America first. That's number one, and that's everything to us. So, as time goes on, obviously he'll be questioned about policies and issues, and I look forward to hearing his perspective on it. But more importantly, I'm just really proud of President Trump selecting somebody who's in my generation, who's young, and who has a new, different vitality and also perspective on America. The America he knows is going to be different than some others, and I think he's a lovely person. I know him personally. He's great.
I mean, a lot of analysts are saying it's succession planning for Donald Trump. Is that how it's viewed?
I don't view it that way. I view every day as a gift, especially after Saturday.
And tell me what you're hoping from the next few days here at the campaign, because we're expecting to hear from President Trump later in the week. Yeah. Has he changed his speech?
Yes.
Just tell us a little bit about what we're likely to expect.
Well, I think it was only natural to change the speech after that. He's, working hard to make sure what his time is everything, and people listen when he speaks. They always have. So he knows the value of his words. I think after Saturday's events, he has to and did decide that the tone needed to be different. So I'm obviously not going to give away the big reveal, but I'm excited. I'm excited to speak. I'm excited to hear him speak. I can't wait.
I guess the big theme that we keep hearing is unity. Does he
Yeah.
think he can bring all of America together?
I know he can, and he knows he can. And I think if you look at the polls, America knows he can, because what this current administration has done is create such division with their radicalism, with what's going on in the borders, what's going on with our children, with indoctrination, with things that I just do not find acceptable as a mom, as a woman, as a Catholic. There's so many levels of things that need to be cleaned up. Weaponizing the justice system, for me, obviously, is the forefront of my mind. And there's no question to me that when President Trump wins, he'll clean up house.
If he doesn't win?
I can't imagine how that could happen unless somebody lies, cheats, or steals. But we never put anything past them.
We'll have to see
We'll
November
have to
5th.
see.
Alina, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, you're watching The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Lots to come on the program, so do stay with us. Joe Biden defends his previous comments that Donald Trump should be put in a bullseye. And I'll be speaking live to the pollster Frank Luntz, to find out how the events of the last week have influenced voters.
It was always going to be controversial. The Capri, when it was alive, people held a lot of affection for it because it was an affordable sports car that looked good. And now we've got a tall SUV selling for nearly double what the average person thinks a Ford should be selling for. So yeah, it was always going to be controversial, but they've done it before. They have formed this in reviving old names with the Puma, the Mustang Mach-E onto SUVs. They've obviously tested the market and thought, yes, can handle it. They'll be talking about it, and Ford reckons it's one of the most talked about launches they've ever done. But whether they're talking about it for the right reasons is another question. Really, it was always ever going to be an SUV because that's what people buy nowadays. I mean, your son saying it's the worst remake is one view. My son, who's 12, thinks it looked cool. He saw it at Goodwood Festival of Speed and saw the front and rear light bars. They looked high tech. He liked it. So, a modern generation who let's face it, can never remember the original car. They actually, think it's quite cool. I mean, the Festival of Speed, these are car enthusiasts. It's and they're generally older. I mean, it's an older crowd. So, it didn't go down terribly well. Let's face it. And it was never going to. I don't think Ford is going to be expecting a whole uprush of affection for it, but that doesn't matter. It just has to appeal to the right person who needs an electric car, but also wants a bit of emotion attached to it, and can see that this adds a little bit of pizzazz in a world of sort of sameness.
Welcome back to Milwaukee. I'm Yalda Hakim. We spoke a little bit earlier about how a Trump presidency would affect foreign policy. Well, today it was Boris Johnson, not the new foreign secretary, who's in town meeting the man who could soon be president. He tweeted this image, have a look, in the past hour, saying the president was on top form after what he described as the shameful attempt on his life. He also said that they discussed Ukraine. He wrote, "I have no doubt that he will be strong and decisive in supporting that country and defending democracy." Well, our US correspondent Martha Kellner is with me now. And Martha, what an image to receive in the last few hours. But you've been out and about getting a sense of this convention. It feels really, really quite different, doesn't it, from previous years? Well, 2020 was done remotely because of COVID, of course.
Yeah, so I think this is the first in-person Republican National Convention for 8 years. Even before what happened on Saturday night, this was a big deal. Yes, Donald Trump was a foregone conclusion for the Republican presidential pick, but it's still a big moment, that anointing of him and J.D. Vance as the vice president on stage. It's a big moment. I think what I've been struck by, and I think this is a direct result of what happened on Saturday night, is this party feels more united than ever in these seats and on the floor behind me. There have been short breaks in between speeches, and the delegates are chanting "fight, fight, fight" in the same way that Donald Trump did after he got to his feet after that assassination attempt on Saturday. So I think it is just this sense of hopefulness, really, this air of inevitability. They think they're going to win the election in November. There's no doubt about that.
That is what is quite extraordinary, actually, that there is this momentum that's been building. It's trying to create a picture of Joe Biden being weak and Donald Trump being strong. And that is really the narrative that is now spreading through this hall and really spreading across the coverage of this and the narrative that's now being created. But Martha, besides what happened at the weekend, we're also hearing reports about a plot to assassinate Donald Trump, an Iranian plot.
Yeah, a strange intervention here. My understanding is that in the several weeks before the assassination attempt on Saturday evening in Pennsylvania, the US received direct intelligence of an Iranian plot to assassinate Donald Trump. We're being cautioned, our colleagues at NBC are being cautioned that it's not unusual to have Iranian plots to do harm to current and former US officials. It's why the likes of Mike Pompeo and John Bolton still have security detail long after they've left office. So that's not unusual. But the fact that there was this specific threat on Donald Trump from Iran makes it even more astonishing, I think, that the Secret Service detail with him on Saturday evening seemed to have such a dreadful lapse in protocol. Obviously, that investigation is still ongoing, but the fact that a shooter was able to get so close to the former president is very unusual.
Yeah, indeed. And security is incredibly tight here today. Thank you so much, Martha, for all of that. Well, rehearsals here continue. We can hear all the mic tests, and of course there are huge preparations for the second day of this convention, which is expected to start in about an hour and a half. But away from Milwaukee, President Joe Biden has admitted it was a mistake to say he wanted to put a bullseye on Donald Trump. Speaking in an exclusive interview with our partners at NBC, Mr. Biden also talked down the possibility of dropping out of the race for the White House, pointing to the millions of Democrats that nominated him to be the party's candidate. David Blevins has this report.
Our exclusive interview with President Biden.
A primetime interview that left America with more questions than answers. The president struggling to defend his recent comment that Donald Trump should be put in a bullseye.
It was a mistake to use the word. I didn't say crosshairs. I meant bullseye. I meant focus on him. Focus on what he's doing. Focus on his policies.
Under pressure from some of his own party, he doubled down on his decision to remain in the race.
The idea that I'm the old guy, I am. I'm old. But I'm only 3 years older than Trump, number one. And number two, my mental acuity's been pretty damn good.
Do you feel like you've weathered the storm on this issue of whether you should be on the ticket or not?
Look, 14 million people voted for me to be the nominee in the Democratic Party. Okay? I listen to them.
Last week, he introduced Ukraine's leader as his Russian enemy.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. We're going to beat President Putin. President Zelensky.
And then referred to his own vice president, using the name of the former president.
Look, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president.
The attempt on Donald Trump's life had shifted the focus from Joe Biden, but he isn't conceding that it could boost his rival's chances of winning.
So let's speak frankly, we're all adults here. Has this shooting changed the trajectory of this race?
I don't know, and you don't know either.
Every attempt to silence his critics seems to give more voice to their concerns. David Blevins, Sky News in Washington.
Well, we're showing you live images now of that event at the NAACP, where Joe Biden is expected to speak. He is running a little bit late, not unusual, but we are expecting Joe Biden to address black voters at that event in Nevada. So as soon as Joe Biden does appear, we will be going to that event live here. But let me just show you some images from Milwaukee. There's a lot of press here at the moment. It's probably one of the biggest press events of the year, perhaps. But if you just look behind me, delegates have started to arrive. Just on the floor down the bottom, I can see Don Jr. and Eric Trump as well, Donald Trump's two sons, walking through the convention center. Earlier we saw Nikki Haley as well, and J.D. Vance made his way to the stage. So we're seeing a lot of the dignitaries, the delegates starting to arrive. It's going to fill up very soon, probably in the next half an hour or so. This convention center is going to be completely full. We are expecting it to begin in about an hour and a half's time. Nikki Haley is, of course, going to be speaking. As we all know, they were bitter rivals throughout the year as they both battled for this nomination, the Republican presidential nomination. And of course, Donald Trump came out on top. And in what was seen as a gracious move, he asked Nikki Haley to speak at the convention, really sticking to the theme of unity. So Nikki Haley will be speaking here today. She has a huge chunk of voters that Donald Trump wants to tap into. So it's also a strategic move to have her here speaking. But we will have lots more, so do stay with us. This is The World with me, Yalda Hakim, live from Milwaukee. Next up on the program, we'll hear what voters in Wisconsin think of the new Republican ticket. So stay with us for that. Welcome back to Milwaukee on a key date in the calendar for the Republican Party. Well, tens of thousands of Republicans are here for the RNC. But why this city and why this state? Well, Wisconsin is one of the most important battlegrounds in the presidential race. The 2016 convention was held in Ohio, a naturally safe Republican state, an expected choice. But 2020 saw a change in tact. The RNC planned for North Carolina, neither blue or red, but a purple swing state. A bold move and a state that Trump ultimately won by just over a percentage point. Similarly, Wisconsin is neither strongly Republican or Democrat. The results here are often on a knife's edge. It's often said that if a candidate wins Wisconsin, they win it all. And it's largely true. In 2020, Wisconsin voted for Joe Biden. He took 49% of the vote compared to Trump's 48%, just 20,000 votes in it. Looking back further, the last time Wisconsin didn't swing for the winning candidate was in 2004. And picking Milwaukee puts the Republicans directly in front of these critical, potentially election-swinging voters. So what do voters make of the new Republican ticket? Well, let's go straight to our US correspondent, James Matthews, who's in Waukesha, west of Milwaukee. And James, I have been to Waukesha. It's in one of the wow counties, if I can remember correctly. And it's these suburbs that are so crucial. In these suburbs, it's just a few thousand people that can make the difference.
That's right, knife edge, as you say, Yalda. I am in a place called Wow, the counties, the swingiest counties in one of the swingiest states. Wow, the acronym for Washington County, Waukesha County, and Ozaukee. I'm at the Waukesha County Fair. Take a look, that starts tomorrow, they're setting up. We've got Downdraft over here, Dodgems to the left of me, with the Pharaoh's Fury, a swinging machine. If I look 180, if I take a 90-degree turn, a puntastic location to cover politics locally, I suppose. But it's all about the swing, of course, and it's all about how that swing is influenced by events. What I have to say to you, Yalda, is when you go around this place, and you know, we're in the United States, remember, where it's the most media-friendly country on the planet, where people queue up to speak to the camera. See, trying to get political views from members of the public here, it is extremely difficult. And it's a reflection of how polarized politics has become. You walk into a business, any kind of business in this town, and they say, look, I'll speak to you privately. I cannot speak on camera because I run a business. I've spoken before, and people have boycotted the work that I do. It's a polarized, divided nation, and that boils down to people being in a position, being prepared to tell you how they think and how they are going to vote. So questions like, how has J.D. Vance gone down? Very difficult, actually, to pin anybody down. Those who I have spoken to about that have rather shrugged their shoulders and reverted to the old staples of, you know, the subject matter that dictates their vote, the economy in particular. I spoke to a farmer. He said, look, life has just got too expensive under Joe Biden. It cost me $1 million for a combine harvester. I need a new one. There's no way I can possibly pay that. He spoke about the difficulties of farming for him. He's been in the business 50 years, even more difficult for somebody starting out in that game. So he spoke about the economy, spoke about Ukraine, you know, asked that question, you know, why should we be paying money on what he regarded as a foreign war when people are struggling at home? So let me give you a sense of what people are thinking in terms of the people who we did speak to, who were prepared to offer their views, Yalda. Let's have a listen.
The assassination attempt at the weekend, what did you think of that, and how does that change things, if at all?
It was shocking. It doesn't change anything for me because I was going to vote for him anyway, but I'm hoping it changes other people's views. I think it humanizes him. He got up. It showed how strong he was. He kept fighting.
What's swinging it for you this election?
I don't know if I can say that. A good man versus a not-so-good man. And I'll let
Which is which?
I'm going to vote for Biden, regardless of what his situation is, because he has a good backup team. I don't like Trump's backup team.
James, listening to some of those voices, I mean, we talk about some of the bigger themes about America's foreign policy, about the economic situation in this country. And this is also Wisconsin, you know, the dairy country. And you realize that really at the end of the day, it's about the bread and butter on people's tables. And so many voters are confused, they're frustrated, and they really don't know which way to go in this kind of election. And in many ways, they probably feel like, well, like so many of us, that they're back in 2020.
Yeah, that's right, Yalda. I mean, I covered that election as well. And ultimately, it boils down to people's lives as they know it and who they think can best shape their personal circumstances. I do wonder in this divided nation where politics are, you know, polarized with either side screaming at each other. I do wonder, with all this discussion about the swing vote and people still to make up their minds, I wonder about the extent to which that swing vote has been squeezed and how many swing voters, people who still have to make up their minds, are left. It may be that the votes on both sides are locked in, and to that extent, what is critical come the November election is getting that locked-in vote out. And what's critical behind that are the factors that would affect that. You know, you wonder about the age of Joe Biden, the debate about infirmity. You see Donald Trump, the attempted assassination. How will both those things drive the vote for both men? Could be critical on come the night in November.
Indeed, very much so. James, thank you so much for all of your reporting. Well, this is The World with me, Yalda Hakim, live from Milwaukee. Next up on the program, how influential could these striking images of a bloody Donald Trump prove to be in the presidential election? I'll speak to the man behind the camera.
When you cover big, tense protests, there's almost always a moment when the atmosphere changes. There's a different noise, and you start to smell tear gas in the air.
As a team, we've interviewed some of the biggest stars in the world. Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt. It can be incredibly surreal being swept up in their world, but we try to give you an honest sense of how these people really are.
When we spoke to the fishermen down in Cornwall, all the politics from Westminster was a million miles away. This was about their jobs, their livelihoods.
Welcome back to the program live from Milwaukee. Images of a bloody Donald Trump fist pumping the air after the attempt on his life captured an iconic moment in time. The pictures have been seen across the world, printed on the front of magazines and newspapers. But have these images now changed the course of the election? Well, as most people ducked for cover after hearing gunshots, the Pulitzer Prize-winning photographer, Associated Press chief Washington photographer Evan Vucci, instead ran to the stage. Well, Evan is here at the convention to take more pictures, and I caught up with him a little earlier. Have a listen. You have photographed President Trump at dozens and dozens of rallies over the years. This one was different. Just tell me about it.
Yeah, it was just like any other rally I've done. I've done it hundreds, if not thousands of times. And there was nothing different than any other day. I was in the buffer zone, which is an area between the lectern and the crowd, and I was just doing my normal thing. And over my left shoulder, I heard some pops, and I knew right away it was gunfire. And as I was training my lens on the stage, I could see the Secret Service starting to jump on, and I made a few frames with my long lens. And then I ran to the stage with my wide-angle lens, and I started photographing the chaos that ensued afterwards. So at that moment, I was just trying to see anything. I couldn't really get a view of the president, so I ran to the other side of the stage. I saw the counter-assault team come up, which is sort of the Secret Service SWAT team. And they came on stage, and I ran to the other side. I was trying to get more photos, and then I knew that they had to take him out of there, and I assumed that it would be on the backside where they had an SUV parked. So I went back to the other side, and as he's coming down the stairs, that's sort of where you see the photo that's been shared widely. The president started pumping his fists, and I saw the flag, and I was at a low angle, and I was composing the frame, and I got some frames off and made the image.
I mean, you know, it is your job, and you've been doing it for so long, but at the same time, are you telling yourself in a moment of chaos like that to just stay calm and do your job?
I'm so glad you said that's exactly what I did. As soon as I heard the shot, I ran to the stage, and I kept telling myself, okay, stay calm. This is a huge moment. You need to do the best job you can. Compose your photos. Where's the light coming from? What's the exposure? What are you doing? What's going on in the peripheral? What are you missing? What could be happening? Where are they going to take him out? Where do you need to be? Where do you need to stand? I knew that this was my turn in American history to document something very important, and I didn't want to drop the ball. So, you know, I just went into work mode. I just shut my brain off, and I've done it 1,000 times. And it's funny because everyone was like, well, the way you compose that photo it seems like, you know, but it's the same photo I would take whether he was shot or whether he's coming off at the end of the rally completely unscathed, waving to the crowd at the end of any other normal rally. It's the same photo I would have made. It's just in a different circumstance.
That was Evan Vucci, photographer, talking to me a little earlier. Well, you're looking at live images of Las Vegas, where we're expecting President Joe Biden to speak to African-American voters at the NAACP event being held there. He's running a little bit behind schedule. We were hoping to see him in the last half an hour or so. As soon as he does come up, we will be going straight to that. But I'm going to leave you here in Milwaukee, where thousands of people are starting to arrive inside the convention center. Delegates and officials, dignitaries, all arriving to mark this important moment in the Republican Party calendar. A key and critical moment where we heard President Trump yesterday name his vice presidential nominee, J.D. Vance, and also President Trump himself appearing with a bandaged ear. We'll have all the updates here for the rest of the week from Milwaukee, but for now, good night.